Hey MVPs, Rico Knows here. Going to talk to you guys about a futures bet coming up. College football season, we're about 10 weeks away, but let's go. We have Arizona State and their win total. If you go to FanDuel and you click on win total up here, you can see that they have Arizona State at 4.5 wins. That means they're either going to win 4 games or more, whatever you think. 5 games or more, 4 games or less, somewhere in between there. How many games do you think they're going to win? Not a lot of wins, not a lot of games. And you see we got positive money if they're going to win at least 5 games. Do you believe in Arizona State to that extent? Positive money. It looks like a great value bet, but let's go look at the schedule. So last season, you see it here, they beat Southern Utah 24-21. That was a terrible showing. It's bad news for new head coach Kenny Dillingham. Kenny Dillingham is kind of known as this whiz kid from Arizona State or from Arizona, Phoenix area, right? His high school career ended due to injury, so he started coaching at a really young age, eventually parlayed that into an offensive coordinator position where he was coordinating or speaking to coaches a lot. Coaches liked him and his mindset and his skill, and eventually he parlayed that into positions on college staffs and then became an offensive coordinator at a really young age. I think the biggest win of his life is his wife is way out of his league physically, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, he was the offensive coordinator at Florida State, Auburn, Oregon, and now he's the head coach, and he's something like 30-something. He's 32 or something. He's incredibly young, okay? And he's the head coach at Arizona State. My biggest fear when I see a young head coach at a team is they don't know the processes of the offseason schedule. So they don't really have it all together as far as how do we want to allocate all of our time in preparation for the season. They know what to do in the game. They're great at coaching fundamentals. They're great at identifying some talent. But what they aren't great at is the process, the syllabus, if you will. What's the schedule for today? And these pros, these guys who have been head coaches for long periods of time or assistant coaches for extended periods of time, they can go out and mimic what they see. I'm going to give you an example. Dell McGee, the new head coach at Georgia State, is doing everything the way Georgia did it. Meaning he's got the same workout regimen, the same team meeting plans, just everything that he did at Georgia that he learned from Kirby Smart, he's reduplicating over here at Georgia State. Is this happening at Arizona State? Did Kenny Dillingham get a good example of how to run an organization while he was an assistant? And you'd say, well, he was with Mike Norvell. He probably did. But it was a very short period of time at Florida State. And when he was at Auburn, he was with the wrong head coach. I don't think he got a great example there. And then when he got to Oregon, he's with Dan Lanning. And I don't know if Lanning showed up and duplicated what he learned. I think Dan Lanning's still learning on the fly. And this is the part of the coaching profession that a lot of people don't talk about is, did you win this game in the offseason? Did you win this game the 7 months you're out of season? Because that's where Alabama and Georgia are winning. That's where Ole Miss is winning. That's where these teams who know their processes, shout out to Jim Harbaugh, Ryan Day, James Franklin, like the great coaches out there are so solidified in this process that you believe in them. The hardest thing about those coaches is they're losing good coordinators and they have to find a replacement. And that's what's so difficult about them, is staying relevant with new coordinators every year because they're so successful. That's what made Nick Saban great, and that's why somebody like Kenny Dillingham struggles. You have a young coach finally get a head coaching position. He knows what he's doing. He knows football. It's that extra part. Do you know how to run the business? And for Arizona State, it looked like they didn't know how to run the business, and it's because of the immense amount of turnover. It's really hard to win when you have no continuity. I know this firsthand. All right, I was in the military over 20 years, senior leader. I get new people every year. I get new leaders every year. And when I get a new platoon sergeant or a new person working for me, oh my goodness. Yep, they know what they're doing. They don't know how to do it the way we do it here. And my first day as a first sergeant, I didn't quite know what I was doing either. I know how to lead, I know how to run it. It was nothing like my third year. My third year, I'm a well-oiled machine. I'm laughing at some of the decisions I made, and I know exactly what I'm doing. So you either get better at the job or you get fired. That's the nature of head coaching. So Kenny Dillingham needs to get better at the job because they came out the gate. They beat an FCS team by 3 points at home. Embarrassing. Come out the next week, and you have a respectable loss to Oklahoma State, but people didn't know it was a respectable loss. especially with Oklahoma State losing the next week or within the next couple weeks to South Alabama, getting blown out. But Oklahoma State was the Big 12 runner-up. So it's not a bad loss. It's not terrible, but it's there, 27-15. Then you get shut out by Fresno State. Now we need to talk. You get shut out by Fresno State 29-0, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that you are starting a true freshman quarterback. Jaden Rashada, 5-star coming in. You let that guy start. You let that guy play. It's bad. Get blown out by USC, lose to Cal, lose to Colorado. You get 2 weeks to prepare for Washington and play the greatest game of the year, and the greatest performance of the year for you is a loss. I want you guys to think about that. The best thing Arizona State did last year was lose to Washington 15-7. If your claim to fame is a loss, I don't want to hear from you. Nope. Can't hear it. Then we got Washington State, found a way to win, and then the wheels fell off. Now, yes, there's a freak accident win here on the road at the Rose Bowl, and that's probably why Chip Kelly's out at UCLA. Shout out to Deshaun Foster. But that win against UCLA, okay, congratulations, 17-7. But the offense struggled. But I'm looking at three of the last four games. 3 of the last 4 games, 2 of which were at home. You give up 55 points to a terrible Utah team. Utah had no semblance of offense, had no quarterback. 55 points to Utah, 49 to Oregon, 59 to Arizona. That's 3 games. 3 out of your last 4 games, you gave up an average of 55 points. Somebody do the math. I'm pretty sure it's around 55 points. That can't happen. That's how you ended the season. That's wild, bro. That's not buy-in. That's not development. That's not getting better. You didn't get a bowl game, so you didn't get the additional practices. He just had to continue to hit the reset button. Now, what is Kenny Dillingham doing right? Well, what he's doing right is he's building relationships with high school coaches in Arizona. So he's learning how to keep the talent at home. Could you imagine keeping Bijan Robinson at home? Right? Texas was raiding Arizona for all the best talent for a number of years. And now you see a lot of those Texas transfers coming back to Arizona State. But it just doesn't look good in this regard. So it's terrible, okay? If we go look at the performances by position group, we're talking about a quarterback room that played horrific. I don't care who got on the field. At some point, Cameron Skattebo, shout out to Scat, 15 attempts, bro. They start letting the running back throw the ball. At some point, 15 attempts. Don't tell me those are 15 halfback passes. Why the hell is he throwing the ball? Is this a forward option? At the end of the day, 55% completion percentage among all their quarterbacks. They played 4 of them. 8 touchdowns last year. 8 passing touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Absolutely embarrassing. And this is a guy that supposedly mentored and molded Bo Nix and fixed him and made him into an NFL draft pick. This is the guy. Kenny Dillingham's the reason Bo Nix is who Bo Nix is. Well, that's great and all, but he didn't do shit with these guys. They were terrible. Running back was the only shining spot on this team. Cameron Skattebo, an FCS All-American transfer out of Sacramento State, showing up. DeCarlos Brooks is a Cal transfer. Shout out to DeCarlos Brooks. He is a follower of the channel, and I have spoken to his father. He watches everything I make, so shout out to him. I appreciate him. Shout out to Brown down here. Not bad. None of these guys matter, and none of these guys will see the field this year. We'll talk about it. But when I talk to some of the players at Arizona State, and I talked to some of the parents and some of the insiders, if you will, I remember last offseason they were like, Rico, you're sleeping on Arizona State, man. They're going to be great. And I said, no, I'm not sleeping on them. They're in my top 10 for transfer portal rankings because they just signed 30 guys. You know, everybody was talking about Colorado signing 40-something. Arizona State signed 30. And not just 1 year. They did it again this year. They've signed 60 guys in the last 2 years. Arizona State's turnover is unrivaled by anything. But when you're giving up 55 points, you got to get rid of the trash. So let's go look at what's happening here. Defensively, if we go down here, Shamari Simmons is back, team's leading tackler. Looked like he played everywhere. The only semblance of defense that they had. But I'm going to tell you, he's not of the caliber of FBS defensive backs. Even that he played great. And yes, he might even be an NFL, I don't know, an NFL prospect, if you will. But there's Caleb McCullough, Trey Brown, Romney. Like, Jordan Clark just transferred to Notre Dame. That's Ryan Clark's son. There's BJ Green. And when I'm pointing out these guys, there's a reason for this. None of these guys are going to start next year. They're coming back, and they were all on the field, but they're not going to start next year. I'm going to tell you something very unique about this team. When you go look at their total tackles and you count 11 players down, that means that they use the bench. And the answer is no. You'll see a bunch of wide receivers with tackles. You'll see a bunch of tight ends. You'll see running backs. That's all special team stuff. Who did they use on defense? It was a very small group that they used on defense. They didn't use a lot of their bench. They're getting blown out of their mind. And they're not using their bench because it's even worse. So it's a terrible team. Terrible. Defensive backs can't find the ball all season long. You have 5 interceptions. I know players with 5 interceptions. The whole team had 5 interceptions all season long. Nobody's got to throw against you. They got the lead. They can just run the ball. They already got the lead. There's nothing to talk about. 5 interceptions all season. You need to address it. So, how did they address it? Well, let's talk about 2023 first, and there's an important reason why. And that's when I go and study 2023, They got a couple of, they got a 5-star or high 4-star here. He's a 97 here. Jaden Rashada, who's obviously gone, transferred to Georgia. But they got all these guys, these players. And when they got these players, I had to go watch film on them. I'm going to tell you, some of them are absolutely spectacular. Some of them are stars in the defensive backfield. Listen, Hines Ward is the wide receivers coach. Hines Ward is the wide receivers coach, y'all. He's teaching them what he can. But whoever's evaluating defensive backs at Arizona State is doing it correctly. They're doing something special. And when I start seeing guys like Bradley here on tape, out of Ohio, 6'2 corner. Montana Warren, 6'2 safety, 180, right? The only small guy is Keith Abney, and Keith Abney's a very good player. He looks like he's going to be that guy. But those three, there's a certain metric we're talking about here in recruiting. They're looking for a certain size and metric at defensive back, and I think they're doing it well. Now, you look at this, 31 transfers last year. Some of them didn't work out. Juwan Mitchell obviously kicked off the team and then ended up at Colorado. You want to talk about some studs. Jordan Tyson is an absolute stud. Was the best player at Colorado when they were 1-11. Coach Prime kicked everybody off the team, but that one was crazy. Jordan Tyson's actually really good. So him going to Arizona State last year and not being utilized correctly, or not really being in the 2D, I think he was recovering from an injury, but that's a guy who, to me, special player. Clayton Smith just needs to live up to the hype. There's Shamari Simmons, though, former JUCO guy and a former Austin Peay guy. Playing out of his mind. But see how small he is? 5'11", 165. They're not looking for those guys anymore. They got those guys in a bind and in a hurry. They're not looking for those guys anymore. You'll see. Troy coming over. Troy's got great size. Wide receiver from Texas. We'll see what happens. Okay. Bram Waldron coming over from Oregon. We'll see if he pans out. There's one. Leaf Fatanu. You see all these last names in the NFL draft. Leaf Fatanu coming over from UNLV. Probably one of the better centers in the Big 12. Yeah, they hit it out the park with that one. A 2-star kid coming out of high school, 3 stars in the transfer portal, one of the better centers in the Big 12. Xavier Guillory looks good sometimes in spring ball, looks good at practice sometimes. Not bad. Idaho State transfer, FCS kid. Kind of moves me there. There's Ben Coleman, probably in the starting lineup now. Prince Dorba, a Texas transfer. Not bad. There's Cam. I already told you. I already made many videos about him. Stovall, former Nevada, Colorado State, was following his coach around for a little bit. Now he's at Arizona State. Small, undersized guy, but he's very senior-oriented. Been around a long time. Okay, been around a number of years. Not going to talk about most of these guys. Jake Smith, USC transfer, but you see the shirt. It's orange. He was originally at Texas, transferred to USC. Didn't work out there. Now he's at Arizona State. It's one of these hand-me-down dudes, and I'm going to talk about him a little bit when I get to the depth chart. It's like there's just guys that at Arizona State that nobody else wanted, and they just keep transferring to FBS schools, and the last stop is Arizona State. Arizona State feels a lot like Purdue, feels a lot like Arkansas, a lot like who's signing, who's a power, I'm trying to think of a Power 5 team that's just signing all the leftovers. Houston, and I don't mean anything negative by that. I'm just telling you the truth. I'm just telling you what it is. They're signing just whatever's left. It feels like the Power 5's version of Nevada and New Mexico. Hate to keep it regional, but it's true. One thing I want to point out is who they lost in the transfer portal. And when you go look at their stats and their position groups, I stopped at running backs. I meant to talk about wide receivers. Let's go back here. Let's stay focused. When you go look at their wide receivers, Elijah Badger's gone, leading receiver on the team, went to Arizona. But I ask you, is he really that good? You think he is, right? But if you don't stick around to play for Hines Ward, if you don't buy into a new coaching staff and you leave to the highest bidder, to a team that, are they going to win any more games? I don't necessarily know. They get their wide receivers to the league? Okay. It bothers me. Here we have everybody else around 20 receptions, 10 yards a reception, no big deal. Kind of the whole group. You lost Jalen Connors to the transfer portal. I think he went to Texas Tech, if I remember correctly. Apologize if I got it wrong, but pretty sure he's gone. And then you have Bryce Perry. I think Bryce Perry left as well, so that hurts, but they got some replacements. Yeah, we'll talk about the replacements and whatnot. But when you see who left, leading receiver gone. Jacob Conover probably should have never been there. I told you guys last offseason, this guy feels like the worst transfer because he picked Arizona State and they picked up another 3 guys after he signed. And then they got Rashad in the recruiting. So Jacob Conover was never going to see the field. And sure enough, it didn't pan out for him. He did see the field for a little bit. But that's a former BYU quarterback. Transferred to Arizona State. Now he's going back to Utah to go play at Utah State. Congratulations. I don't think he can play there either, but that's a whole other story. Told you Perry left. He went to UCLA. Rashada went to Georgia. Drew Pine didn't work out. He's at Missouri now. BJ Green, good pass rusher. He's at Colorado. Probably hurts to lose a guy like BJ Green. Probably does. They didn't have a lot of depth up front anyways. Not a lot of good players. Never really contributing. Never really stuck out to me. Running back room got a hell of a lot better, so you got to go. Isaiah Glass hurts. Losing Isaiah Glass hurts. This was a starter 2 years ago. He started 3 games last year, but he was injured. He was injured most of the year, so you losing Isaiah Glass sucks. Jalen Connors, your leading tight end. I told you he's going to Texas Tech. We're good there. Jordan Clark going to Notre Dame. Ryan Clark's son. It's tough to lose some of those guys, but he didn't lose all that much production. They didn't have a lot of production anyways. They didn't lose a whole lot of depth. But they addressed their needs. If you look at 2024, one thing I want to do before I get into the transfer portal class is these are true freshmen. So you have Terrell Kim. No, not Kim. I'm looking for Clem. Where's Clem? The little brother, the defensive back. Where's Clem? There he is. Nico Clem coming over from Sierra. If you don't know, his father is an NFL player or was an NFL player, and he's a college coach. He's a defensive back. His brother just transferred in from Washington after being at K-State. Washington now here. So they're getting family-oriented picks. But look, man, I go watch tape on these kids. I go watch all their huddle film, and I just write little notes like who's good, who's good, who's good. One thing you need to notice, the corners. Bamaj, Johnson Jr., both of them over 6 feet tall. They have a certain look to them now. The defensive backs at Arizona State have a certain look to them. Okay? I'm going to go down here, not Sample. McDonald, 6 foot. Everybody's over 6 foot. Everybody's over 6 foot. And the special one for me is Tony Lewis. You say it for me. Cuba? Nucuba? I apologize. I can't pronounce certain names. But Tony Luis Cuba is a straight baller. Straight baller. They give him 3 stars. He's way down here on the recruiting list. And I'm telling you, I watched the tape. You heard it here first. They have 3 really good defensive backs. They're evaluating defensive backs correctly. They're doing it right. Looking on offense, they got another 30 transfers. Another 29 transfers here. Jeff Sims coming over from Nebraska. Gives you depth at the quarterback room. If something goes wrong, he is a dual threat guy. If he can hold on to the ball, everything will be better. but he fumbled everything he did at Nebraska. Malik McClain, originally from Florida State, transferred to Penn State last year. Now he's come over, 6'4", 205, gives you that size, but he's never really played to the level I'm talking about. But there's an example of a guy going from one Power 5 school to another Power 5 school to another Power 4 school. It bothers me. It doesn't look good, and he's not getting it done. Alton McCaskill joins the running back room, complete stud, former AAC or American Athletic Conference freshman of the year, 16 rushing touchdowns. His freshman year, over 900 yards, almost 1,000. Looks like Eric Dickerson when he runs. Only problem, he tore his ACL the next year. He's been in recovery. He still, I think, has 2 years of eligibility left. Let's go get it, Alton McCaskill. I hope he's recovered. He looked really fast. I think he ran over 22 miles per hour with his catapult vest. Tapp can actually play. He'll be in the rotation from it. They got 2 more Texas guys. Tapp can play. Get excited about him showing up to Arizona State. Helps alleviate the pain of losing BJ Green. Mateer, tight end, another alleviation of losing your tight end, coming over from, it says Colorado, but before that he was at Cincinnati, so he knows Big 12 competition. There's Clem, I already talked about him, coming over from K-State to Washington. Jacob coming over from Arizona, more depth up front, 100 miles or 300 pounds. Miles Rouser, we all know him for the wrong reason. It's unfortunate. He just got lit the hell up in the spring game. It's unfortunate. He took a really big hit. Another thing about him is I don't think he's Power 5 material, personally. They say he was a 4-star kid coming out of high school. I believe he went to Campbell or JUCO first and then went to New Mexico State. I'm not sold on him like that. Sorry to repeat myself. Cole Martin, former 4-star, complete stud, really good player. He is one of the smaller corners coming over from Oregon, and I think he's going to start. I think he's pretty good. And then there was a huge emphasis to upgrade your linebackers. And they did that. So if you go back and look at the stats last year, their leading tacklers were their linebackers. McCullough, Romney, right? Look at this. In their top 5, they have 3 linebackers. Their leading tacklers are their linebackers. That doesn't mean they were any good. That does not mean they were any good. They went out and got Keshawn Elliott, who I talk to the MVPs about every single week as the middle linebacker for New Mexico State. He looked like the only guy on New Mexico State's defense that knew what he was doing. And he's a huge man, 6'3", 225. He's playing out of his mind, okay? And it's one of those things where I really like Keshawn Elliott moving up. It looks like an upgrade. Shineko, this guy was supposed to be a starter. He already hit the transfer portal. He's gone. I think he went to Arizona. So he hit the transfer portal. He left. This was a starter, and it's unfortunate for them to lose him. Not moved by Wilson, really. I'm going to leave that alone. Here we go. Cyrus Fiasu. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. He's the best linebacker at San Diego State. He was the team's leading MVP, if you will, at San Diego State. He was a stud. One of the most amazing players. He's going to start. He belongs on the field. He's going to start. So that's another upgraded linebacker. I'll show you on the depth chart. Raleek Brown. I've been telling you guys Raleek Brown is Reggie Bush 2.0 for 3 years now. And I look like a fool because he couldn't even start at USC. The coaching staff never put him in the starting lineup. Listen to me. Raleek Brown is Reggie Bush 2.0. I will not get off that assessment. I watched him at Mater Dei for his whole career. I know what Raleek Brown can do. I don't know what Lincoln Riley was thinking. I don't know why he wouldn't start Raleek Brown or use him. He's at Arizona State. He will be the backup running back. He will be the slot receiver they get the ball to. He will be everything. And before you guys go, Rico, why are you calling him the guy if he's going to be the backup running back? Cameron Scatboo is him. But more importantly, for those of you who don't remember watching USC, for those of you who didn't watch USC with real notice, like I was a sports writer at this time, the starting running back at USC was not Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush was a change of pace back. Reggie Bush did not lead the team in touchdowns. Lindell White led the team in touchdowns. Lindell White was getting the first downs. Reggie Bush was the guy getting screens and draw plays in space. Reggie Bush, everybody talked about it. He won a Heisman. He's the punt returner. He's a superstar. Reggie Bush can line up anywhere on the field. Could line up at receiver. Lindell White was the team's leading touchdown. And it wasn't close. That's why Cameron Scatboo is that Lindell White. Raleek Brown is Reggie Bush. It's a different thing I'm talking about, y'all. You guys got, history People just forget stuff. They just talk out of turn. They're just like, Reggie Bush didn't do no, well, go look at his stats. Well, no, 1,500 yards. 1,000 total yards. 1,000 yards from scrimmage. Some shit like that. I'm letting you know. Super excited. That's how I feel about Raleek Brown. I see somebody on TikTok said, guys, are we disrespecting Reggie Bush? Are you hard? You don't understand? You don't understand? I'm praising Raleek Brown. The lack of comprehension is disgusting from people, bro. That dude missed every word problem in his life. The lack of comprehension is ridiculous. Raleek Brown is him. Then there's Jordan Crook. If you watch my linebacker podcast videos on YouTube, I talked about it at length that Jordan Crook didn't belong at Arizona State. I said Jordan Crook is getting this signing as a handout. He couldn't play at Arkansas. And then his high school coach, he went to Duncanville. And the son of the high school coach got him to hook up over here because he works at Arizona State and all this stuff. All that to say this, I was wrong. I was wrong 100 times over. Jordan Crook is good. And Jordan Crook's so good that you're going to have a hard time keeping him off the field. I know why Arkansas didn't want to play him, because he's 6 foot 220. But he's so much better than the other linebackers at Arizona State. And listen, I like Cyrus. I like Elliott. I'm on Keyshawn Elliott and Cyrus all day. But you got to get Jordan Crook on the field. He's one of your best 11. Figure it out. Speaking of one of your best 11, Sam Leavitt hits the transfer portal. And everybody thinks he's going to go back home to Oregon. But obviously, Kenny Dillingham knows Oregon really well. He was the offense coordinator there. Probably recruited Sam Leavitt out of high school or didn't offer him. I don't even want to get into this because Jonathan Smith didn't offer him all this shit. This dude's a crybaby, bro. So he leaves Michigan State, Sam Leavitt does, and he goes to Arizona State. And the craziest thing happens. He wins the starting quarterback job. That's your starting quarterback, and nobody saw it coming. How good is he? It's on you, bruh. It's on you. There's Douglas, another tight end transfer. Came in early from Florida State, and they still added another tight end after. That's because Markston Douglas is a traditional hand-in-the-dirt tight end. He is an extra blocker. He is a down block specialist, bro. Markston Douglas is not out there catching passes like that. He's not a threat like that. And those are the only guys I really wanted to touch on. Sorry if I skipped one of your favorite players. But if we go look at the depth chart, there's Troy, great size, coming out of Texas. Jake Smith, another Texas USC transfer. But look, everybody's a transfer. And I'm telling you, Jordan Tyson is probably the highest ceiling of all the wide receivers at Arizona State. The highest ceiling is Jordan Tyson. He's really good. I like him. I think he can play in the Big 12. Everybody else is kind of just hand-me-downs. Just leftovers, not a big deal. Offensive line, it's going to hurt. I think they don't have a lot of depth. They're trying to figure it out. They have a good center. Good center. But you see, it's just not, I'm telling you, they're just not where they're at. Tight ends, we have Douglas starting, but I've already told you, if you're paying attention, when you go and sign a tight end late in the process, you want to add him to the room. So we'll see where he ends up on the depth chart. Mateer coming out of Cincinnati. So we'll see where he ends up on the depth chart. But right now, it looks like Douglas is that extra guy. They need help on the offensive line anyways. They're a run-first team. There's Cameron Scatboo. Raleek Brown will be your second running back. DeCarlos Brooks is still good. Former Cal running back, by the way. There's Trenton Bourguet. He was one of the quarterbacks that actually got to see the field. Hopefully he doesn't see the field this year. The upgrade on defense, it starts with the linebackers. All upgrading. All your team's leading tacklers are over here, and they're second string now. They're second string, and I think Crook's going to pass them. All those dudes won't see the field anymore. No, they're emergency situations. I like these new guys. They're beasts, and they like their secondary. They're running this 4-2-5 defense or whatever it is. They like their DBs, and they got to get them out there on the field. And like I said, they're kind of getting rid of the old guys and bringing in the new ones. So all that to say this, guys. Arizona State is still in a transition period where they're trying to learn what to do in the offseason, and they're trying to build their rosters. So They're going up against Wyoming at home. Wyoming's not very good on the road. Wyoming's really good at home. So I think Arizona State wins that game against Wyoming to start the season. Then they play Mississippi State at home again. Mississippi State is still an SEC team. It feels like Mississippi State has better players, but I don't think Mississippi State wins that game. I think Arizona State finds a way to win that game. Then they go on the road to Texas State. It doesn't look good for Arizona State. We'll see what happens. But even if they win 3 games in a row, I don't see how they beat Texas Tech. I don't see how they beat Kansas, Utah. I don't like the way they match up with Cincinnati. I don't. Cincinnati has some really good players, but it's possible they win that game. And we're gonna keep talking about this. No way they beat Oklahoma State. No way they beat UCF or at Kansas State. Not at Arizona. So now we're looking at BYU. And if they beat BYU, that means I have BYU losing every single game this season, which is crazy. But we got BYU, possible wins here. BYU, Cincinnati, and then the first 4, if you think so. I don't think they can beat Texas Tech. So then I got 3. If you got them beating Mississippi State, that's news to me. But it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games is the ceiling for this team. 6 wins is the absolute ceiling. 6. And I don't see it getting to 6. I don't see it getting to 5. And if Mississippi State beats them, then they're at 4. And the reason that's significant is the books have it at 5, right? Do you think they're going to get to 5? I don't. I don't see it. I've got them on the under, and it's pretty significant. And I see it at a minus 152, so you got to be careful with that MVPs. Let me pull up the whole chart here. I'll show you guys. This is a lock for me. I think Arizona State's going to struggle with defensive depth, offensive line depth, and quarterback play. I don't think it's that big of an upgrade from last year. Getting a guy like Sam Leavitt, who left a wide-open quarterback job at Michigan State, couldn't win it over 2 other guys in Noah Kim and Caden Hauser. So I'm looking at Michigan State last year. They're struggling at the quarterback position after losing Peyton Thorne. Caden Hauser, Noah Kim are battling for that job. The third guy, Sam Leavitt. So now Sam Leavitt comes to Arizona State, and he's magically a starter at the Power 5 level, Power 4 level. I just don't see it like that, man. I really believe in this under. You guys see it, 3 units. Arizona State doesn't get to 5 wins this year. I think they get to 4 at best, but it's really realistic to see them at 3. This is a defense that was giving up 50 points a game out of 3 out of the last 4 games. Yes, they've upgraded linebackers. Yes, another year under Kenny Dillingham. They improved at wide receiver. At wide receiver, they really didn't improve. You lose Elijah Badger. You don't really add anybody else, but you love your room, and Jordan Tyson's healthy. So it just feels like a break even at best, but probably decline. Excuse me. Tight end, decline. Running back, improved immensely. You get Raleek Brown. He's a stud. Defensively, defensive line, break even at best. Linebackers, improve. DBs, I think they're getting better. I think they're doing really good at the DB range. When I assess this team, they're doing something right in the defensive backs. I promise you. Arizona State, on its way, if they can keep all these kids, to being like a DBU type situation where they're getting players that are going to get developed to make it to the NFL. I watch tape, guys. I watch tape of every single player in America. When I watch players and I tell you, hey, this guy's good, it's because he's better than the other people I've been looking at. It's because I've been assessing the talent. And I really like the Arizona State defensive backs that they've signed. Everybody's over 6 feet tall, except for Cole Martin and what's his name? The athlete, Keith Abney. That's it. Other than that, everybody's great. So, Arizona State, under 4.5. It's a lock. Go get your bet in before the season starts. We're going to win all our money at the end of the year. You guys see it. Go back and watch all the futures videos. Learn about them. Your friends don't know, but Rico knows. Peace, y'all.